Episode 35.
We're going.
VPZD.
It's good to be back. It's good to see you.
We're sending out an SOS.
We were just talking about seeing concerts in the Greek Theater.
Greek Theater at Berkeley, man.
Your old stomping ground.
That's right. So you went to a Berklistan?
I went there.
The Republic of Berkeley?
Yeah, I went to there. I pushed past the protesters.
Yes.
And I got a seat there in the Greek Theater. It was a great venue, actually. And it was a warm October night.
I tell you, it's one of the most beautiful places. My daughter just did a month there at summer school, and I would just be walking by the Greek and remembering seeing Sting there in 1994 doing his I walk through fields of gold, that tour. And I remember thinking, man, that guy's old back then.
Yeah.
And now, he showed up on Only Murders in the Building in a cameo role. And I'm like, Sting's still alive? What's he even doing?
The first thing that jumped out at me and Berkeley campus was that it has been taken over by Indian and Chinese and Asians.
Can I say this? That hasn't changed.
That hasn't
It was
changed.
like that when I was there. But
since the 90s, since California banned affirmative action.
That's right.
Which allowed Asians to just completely crush the test.
I thought it was 60% Asian or South Asian.
I see.
Yeah. It's pretty high. And then people say, oh, Berkeley is this real liberal kind of school. It's not.
Yeah.
The student body's super immigrant,
computer science.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Young Republicans was the biggest group on campus when I was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's kind of nuts. So
and you were the founding member?
I was a founding member.
I see. Right.
I was I was an Alex P. Keaton Republican.
You put your bow tie on.
That's
and you
right.
Started?
I'd be like, now listen, Dad. Ronald Reagan's doing good in the supply side economics. Man, I miss Family Ties. I actually don't. It was a terrible show, but
I barely remember it.
You're too young.
I have a few episodes. Yeah.
10 years. We're 10 years off each other.
Sitcom.
So we have an agenda, but it's loose.
It's loose, and we also want to get lunch, so we're going to wrap it up if we get too hungry.
That's right.
But here's our agenda.
It's loose like Sting's prostate.
From all those 12-hour sessions.
The tantric sex.
That'll loosen
That's
it up.
another show, yeah.
Jay Varma.
Oh.
New York City public health official and well-known hypocrite.
Living the dream.
The 10th anniversary of Paradigm HF. I'll tell you about that.
Excellent.
An MD, PhD looking for a job.
Whew.
Vax to get a solid organ transplant. Marty's best-selling book.
Oh, Marty.
Almost best-selling book.
Yeah, yes, if they'd actually kept it in stock, yeah.
Visits to Stanford and Emory. Why I don't like to talk to reporters.
Oh.
And then maybe the vice presidential debate and misinformation. If we get time, we got a lot in store for you.
Oh, so much good stuff, VP.
So
and
much
as
stuff.
usual, we do this off the cuff. VP texts me this morning and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Same thing I do every day. Try to take over the world."
I'm like, I'm passing by. Well, I'm driving from SF to Stanford, where I have to be there later this evening.
For this, which we'll talk about. Yeah,
which we're going to talk about.
Awesome. All right. So what do we do? Jay Varma's sex party. I saw this in the news. I saw a fellow brown person.
Well, first of all, you first saw it in the hotel room, and then later,
I first saw it when I was rolling on Molly with my 20 naked friends.
Got it.
Right. Yeah.
That's when you first saw it. The second time you saw it was in the news.
Exactly.
So apparently, it's very interesting. Jay Varma is the New York City public health advisor during Bill de Blasio, during the peak of COVID-19 restrictions. And we should remind the viewers out there what those restrictions were. You couldn't visit a loved one in the hospital. Funerals, even outdoor funerals, were banned. Notably, de Blasio himself broke up an Orthodox Jewish funeral outside with cloth masks, and he broke it up.
Wow.
Okay, there were lockdowns in place throughout the summer of 2020. Schools, of course, were closed in New York City. And Jay Varma presided over this. He was the advisor to de Blasio, and many of these measures he, tacitly supported, and some he privately disagreed with, like the school closure, but he couldn't do anything about it. He is caught on a hidden camera recorded by a conservative commenter, a woman who he deployed. And in the hidden camera, Jay Varma admits that in the summer of 2020, he attended at least one rave, and he attended a sex party in a hotel room where 8 to 10 people, he and his wife, a pediatrician, they all got naked and took Molly. And then he tells the reporter something like, the best part of it wasn't necessarily the quote-unquote penetrative sex part. It was just being close to other people or something like that. So this has stirred up a lot of controversy. One thing people said was, he said in defense was, they're just out to get me. To which I say, people will look for skeletons in your closet, but if you confess to being a serial killer, they got you. So they're out to get you, but you did confess to something pretty messed up.
Right.
2, how did they get this hidden camera footage? It feels like to me that this female reporter is on a date with him. He's talking about his polyamorous lifestyle, and she tricks him as men can easily be tricked into trying to brag and tell her all these things. And
we're pretty wiener-centric. I mean, we're
Right,
basically
yes.
thinking with that. Yeah.
Well, that's what he was doing.
Exactly.
apparently,
Yeah. All that neural tissue in the glands.
I see.
Yeah.
And well, he was masked during the orgies.
That part was masked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, but I use protection. Yeah.
Yeah. This is safe. He said we all test. And then she was like, oh, for STDs? He's like, oh, no, for COVID. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, God. Oh. It's just the neurosyphilis talking.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, people are angry. My first thought was like, what a son of a bitch,
Yeah.
these kinds of people. And he's not the only one, though. Remember Gavin in French Laundry?
Yep.
Nancy Pelosi
And their barber.
The barber. London Breed and the dancing in the nightclub. Boris Johnson and Partygate.
That's right.
Neil Ferguson in Imperial College London and his mistress that he was breaking lockdown to see. But he said that it was okay because he had and recovered from COVID, so he had natural immunity. Which by the way,
was not actually respected by the public health community.
Correct, at the time, yeah.
for vaccine mandates.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then they went to work and denying that it existed. And the list goes on. And in fact, we have an ongoing research project where I'm going to compile the biggest list of hypocrites. So, I mean, to me, that hypocrisy is what's interesting. And you want to go?
Yeah. Well, no.
Dive into
yeah. So, yeah. This is fascinating to me because I look at Jay Varma and I go, okay, he's doing what any young professional with a consenting wife that they want to do that. That's great. Like, wonderful. He got close to, he said it was the need for connection and closeness with others. It wasn't about the penetrative sex.
That's what he said.
I don't think that's ever come out of my mouth. It wasn't really about the penetrative sex.
Yeah, right. What was it? What happened yesterday? It wasn't really about that.
I believe it was the late, great 50 Cent, who isn't dead,
50 Cent.
who said, I ain't into having sex, I'm into making love. But it was actually the opposite.
I see, right.
But this is what Jay Varma is saying. It wasn't about having sex, it was making love.
Yeah.
But the point being, which is your point, which is, okay, but they're promoting policies during this time that harmed human connection at a mass scale and then are doing the opposite. Yeah. And they feel like I think his thing was like he felt like, oh, I got away with it. They would have been really mad at me. I think it's something that he said.
Somebody wrote to me that that's what gets him off the most. It's not the penetrative sex. It's that he set the policy that he himself violated. So that's what gets him off.
That's what gets him off. And that's a particular fetish on Pornhub. It's hypocrisy porn. Is that
the hashtag that's trending? Hashtag hypocrisy porn. I bet that would be an interesting genre. Yeah, I bet it would blow up.
It's right next to bukkake and in between. Yeah, and
hypocrisy porn.
Bukkocracy. Yeah, it's a mix of both at this point. Yeah. It's where you shoot your hypocrisy over.
Hypocrisy everywhere.
But I think again, and Gavin Newsom, all these guys that were saying one thing and doing the other. It again undermines the public's belief that these guys, number one, have our best interests at heart, are consistent in what they say and do, and believe what they say. Because how could he really believe it?
He wasn't worried about COVID.
That's right.
Like most people who could read the literature. Like I wasn't really worried myself.
Right.
I was like, I'm young and healthy. I'll be fine.
He
wasn't worried.
That's right.
And the other thing that it says to me is that they really do think there's a two-tier system. Like Gavin can send his kids to public school or to private school, but fuck your kids in public school.
That's right.
They have a two-tier system, and they're such naked hypocrites. And then the public trust has collapsed in public health. We have surveys that show trust in physicians is down, trust in the CDC and state public health is down. And then they have the audacity to say the reason for that is Joe Rogan. No, the reason for that is your fucking sex party while you were setting a lockdown. And then you had your Molly party, okay? Right. That's why people don't trust you.
Right.
Because you weren't really scared. You were lying about it. Right. You didn't take it seriously. And you also set policies you knew human beings could not abide by because it's antithetical to human nature, as you describe.
Right. And I think like you've said before, they took their model from communist China as to how to do these things. Well, the Chinese just locked everything down, so we could probably do the same thing.
And then they had their sex parties.
And then
at least I'm sure the elites did.
The elites had tons of sex parties, but they only had one child. That's the difference, between U.S. sex parties, where you could have like a brood.
Yeah, there's a brood that comes out of
there. It's like you have to knock off several of the. It gets dark really fast.
There's it's a selection process that you got. Yeah.
But so do you know Jay Varma? Do you know anything about him?
Do I know him?
Because I feel like in the sex party
we don't get too much time to talk at the party, You don't really get to connect at the. No, I don't know him.
How do I filming?
What the fuck kind of question? How would I know this guy? It's pervert. I'm not in these. I'm not going to these parties.
All
What do you
Indians
think
know
of
each
me?
other.
All
ultimately.
Indians know each other. All Indians. Yeah, I'm closer to Puffy. You know, honestly,
you
I'm
know,
closer to, yeah, I'm
that's
the
a
Sean,
good-
I'm the
that's a-
Sean Combs party.
That's a
Yeah.
good relationship to have.
Right.
Yeah. That's another thing. Like, you know,
sex parties are in the news these days.
and the hypocrisy in general, it extends. Puffy's a good example. Like, how many celebrities were perfectly happy to go to P. Diddy's
parties.
white parties
Yeah.
that were, you know, apparently if you look in the wrong door, you're just like, oh shit,
Yeah.
like what's going on in there? I feel like in all these echelons, well, humans are hypocrites.
Yeah.
Many crave power, and during COVID, power was available to people who would normally never have it.
Yeah,
like when did a
public health
public
degree.
health? Yeah,
Yeah, there's a reason why there's no power in that job.
exactly.
And there shouldn't be power anymore soon after this.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, what do you think should be done, Vinay? Because there's two camps on this. Like, let's forgive and have a reconciliation about all this and move on and forget it. Why are we beating this dead horse? And others who say, but if we do that, when the next, you know, Marburg pandemic or whatever comes, or bird flu, the same shit's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't believe in forgiveness because, in my opinion, these pieces of shit are still lying. I mean, like, if you want forgiveness, the first thing you have to say is what you actually did wrong. And they're still fucking lying. Well, based on the best information we had at the time, cloth masking 2-year-olds was a sensible. No, it wasn't, you fucking liar. I knew it wasn't. You have to be dropped on your head to think that. I mean, you're lying, dude. And just say, okay, fine, I was scared. I wanted to go to my sex party. I thought if the 2-year-olds masked up, I gotta have more parties. Just say you were lying. Just say you made shit up. And then I also want them to admit they didn't run any studies. I want them to admit that they didn't run any studies, even though people told them to. And I want them to admit that they censored people on Facebook who talked about, you know, I want them to admit what they did wrong. Once they admit, then we'll talk about forgiveness. But they're still not fessing up. And their new narrative is, we did the best with what we had at the time. This example shows that that's not true, that there was information they had at the time and they were privately doing different things.
So what you've picked on here is what I think is what really upsets people is the lack of authenticity.
Yeah.
They're not true to what they're actually experiencing. So they're not telling you the truth. They're withholding, and they're telling you one thing in hopes you will behave a certain way while doing the opposite thing. And so that's not leadership when you figure it out.
Yeah.
Now let's contrast it with somebody who's been, you know, accused, say, of getting some things wrong during COVID. Let's say, and a lot of things right. Monica Gandhi, right? Yeah. So Monica has said, oh, you know, I screwed up when I mentioned that maybe Delta won't be a big problem in India or something, right? It's like, I was wrong about that for these reasons. So she'll say that during the pandemic. She'll say it after the pandemic. So people have a feeling with Monica that she's not trying to manipulate you. And she'll even say, hey, the reason I'm saying double mask and the reason I'm talking about mask is not so much that I think there's amazing data, although I think there's some. I think it's because it will allow us to stop these crazy lockdowns.
Correct.
And she'll say that publicly. Yeah. So
that's a good example.
Right.
She's somebody who admitted the things that she was short on and doesn't get enough credit for the things she was good on.
Exactly, which were amazing.
Which was that she really opposed lockdown. And she knew it was barbaric.
And school closures.
Yeah. And she knew people like Jay Varma wouldn't be able to not resist, you know. So like she opposed school closures, right? And she wanted masks, not because she necessarily thought it had the greatest evidence, but she thought that it would calm people down enough so they'd go out of their house.
That's right.
But ironically, when you would, look what she's getting nothing but trash.
Nothing but trash. And the thing is, she was a fierce advocate of vaccine when it was released because she said, okay, everyone,
this will end the lockdown.
This will end the lockdown and we can get on with life. Because her biggest thing, and she said this on my show, so I'm not, saying something confidential, when her husband passed, which was right prior to COVID starting, of cancer, long battle with cancer, she realized that life is to be lived lovingly and openly with other humans. And what this
that's
was
the slogan of the party, by the way.
That's right. Yes, it's also strangely the sub tag on Hypocrisy, on Pornhub. And so she would use the best science that she had to persuade people, and she was open and authentic about it. And that's why I think people responded to her. And that's why I think a lot of public health people they hate her. They get so angry. Hate. Like, you remember, what is it, Mehdi Hassan, that guy on MSNBC went after her and tried to force her to admit that she'd made all these, mistakes and this and that. And she was just like, yeah, so.
Yeah. Oh, which is a connection to the reporter point.
Oh, you want to talk about that next?
I guess you bring it up.
We might as well. Yeah.
Many.
Why don't
Although,
you like to talk?
Is he a reporter?
Oh, yeah. I know.
I mean,
You're talking
so
head.
shameless.
He's about as much a reporter as Tucker Carlson, say. Yeah.
I guess he's just like one of these reporters that's like so far one side or the other of the political spectrum that he's so predictable it's boring.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bring it back to Jay Varma. But the point I want to make of reporters is, yeah, I often get these emailed requests and it's like, would you give me a quote for this article I'm writing, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. Sometimes when I've never heard of them, I don't even reply. But sometimes I reply and sometimes I get out of it or, whatever. So why don't I like to talk to reporters? I want to tell them this, and I've told some of them. If you want to talk to me about whatever you want, let's record the full thing in a Zoom and just drop it on YouTube.
Yeah.
The full unedited, your questions and my replies.
That's right.
And if you're willing to do that, I'll talk to you on any topic.
That's right.
But if you want to talk to me for 25 minutes and then take one little quote and weave it into your story of some narrative that you've picked,
yeah,
I don't want to participate in that.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the thing about authenticity and long form. This is the new genre.
That's right.
Which is that let's just put it all out there. And then people will know you're cherry picking the quote, you're taking it out of context, or you didn't include all this other thing I told you.
That's a beautiful way to talk about this because that's been I can tell now, like when a reporter just wants a dumb soundbite to back something and I just know to ignore, or I'll quickly have an exchange with them and just say, I don't think this is a fit for my expertise, which is my way of saying, I don't want you taking me out of context and supporting something that I don't support, like creating a narrative like what you said. But I can also tell sometimes because I'll get on the phone with them, just go, okay, this is off the record. I just want to see what you're about. And I know, they're going to do a long form piece that has nuance and actually is supporting something that I care about. And then I'll contribute to that. And then I'm usually happy enough. There's always something you could say, they didn't, they kind of misrepresented. But in general, it's okay. But that requires effort and time and some talent actually, and some devotion to an authentic view. But that also has some nuance. So I'm not an ideologue, but there are things that I care about a lot and I don't want them being misrepresented. So it's that sort of thing.
Yeah. I just want to, have another quote out there where I look like an idiot.
And that's so easy to happen. Yeah. I look like an idiot anytime I open my mouth and I'm taken out of context. And even when I'm taken in context.
I only want to look like an idiot for in context, not for the out of context.
Yeah, because then at least we could say, okay, I'm in context. I'm an idiot. Dude, my focus is going batshit. Let me just fix that while we're talking. So what else with reporters though? Have you had experiences where you're just like, no?
I have had experiences where I was like, this person has an agenda. Someone, I think in the peak pandemic called me up about children masking and their agenda was that they thought it was really important. Oh, by the way, on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Annals of Internal Medicine. Oh, go check out. The embargo will be lifted. And a little New England Journal of Medicine paper will be reanalyzed. And let us see if the New England Journal of Medicine actually can hold up under a reanalysis in the Annals of Internal Medicine. 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Oh, I wonder who did this reanalysis.
I'm part of it. But
somebody who's embargoed currently until Monday.
Yeah. But I'd say the hard work was by Tracy Beth.
Oh, yeah. Tracy Beth.
Yeah. But,
fantastic.
But I'm a part of it.
This is part of the whole process of going through and going, what did we get right? What did we get wrong?
Yeah. What did we get right?
Now, how will a reporter parse your piece, though?
Using methods unavailable to the original authors. Untrue. They're probably going to say some nonsense. Yeah, and then the real question is, should New England, will they retract the original publication? The honorable thing.
Doubtful.
The dignified thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Contrarian physician advocate Vinay Prasad, who associates with such undesirables as Jay Bhattacharya, Zubin Damania, Marty McCary.
And Jay Varma.
I
was like, I've never met Jay Varma.
not without a blindfold and handcuffs on.
Oh, gosh.
First of all, I was like, how many doctors are polyamorous like that? We're not.
I think it has to be low.
It's got to be low.
I haven't done a survey around the office.
Now here,
it's a tough survey to send out.
Question. Yeah, it's a tough one to send out. How polyamorous are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Especially in the pediatrics. Like his wife's a pediatrician.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll say
AAP.
The reason I suspect it's either not common or underreported out of shame is physicians are so risk averse. They would never. It would be very hard to find openly polyamorous married physician couples. This is a total hypothesis. Now I want to be proven wrong. Like people can leave in the comments, with an alias or
you
whatever.
Could say I'm polyamorous and Z-Dog, you can meet me.
It's the Ashley Madison for physicians. Oh my God.
No, I think it's very low because they're risk averse, and that to some degree, to be a doctor is to be a bit of a lifestyle conservative.
Yeah, lifestyle conservative.
Because how much of gratification in your 20s you have to put on hold
Totally.
to be a doctor.
Totally.
Yeah, you can't be going to Molly parties and
Right.
residency.
There's only.
I mean, not back when we trained, but maybe in the
Right. I mean, back when we
trained
trained, it was like, how many lines of coke do I have to do? I don't know.
to get through the shit.
You know what's interesting? I've never tried cocaine. Yeah. I've done all the psychedelics, but I've never tried cocaine. It just makes me feel like I don't need to be more cornholio than I am.
I feel like you already are
Yeah.
at baseline.
Exactly.
You're coked up at baseline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like that guy from RoboCop who's doing lines of cocaine on top of the hookers, and the guy walks in and just says, "Bitches, leave," which is, again, the best line of any movie. So no cocaine for me. But what were we talking about?
Jay Varma, sex party. But I bet it's actually much more common among the types of doctors who seek out these public influential roles and politicians.
Could be.
These politicians are all messed up in the head.
The ethics there is very different. Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. And again, I want to clarify this. I have nothing wrong with polyamory. I think you should be able to choose whatever lifestyle you want.
See, you're a progressive Californian.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I'm like,
lean into that authenticity.
whatever gender, whatever sex, that's all fine. Just don't make me do anything that I don't want to do.
I guess I would say that
Bit of a libertarian.
that setting aside what you think of the sex parties, I would say that if you're closing the school, you shouldn't be going to the sex party. I just think that is the crux.
That's the thing.
The crux of the
listen, our
issue.
children are still suffering. Bay Area, New York. This is it's still rippling out.
Yeah.
You read, there was an article recently about how college professors are saying. Sorry, I keep sidetracking us, but
No.
it's related to this. College professors are saying
they
that
can't
they're
read.
shocked that these kids can't read books.
You can't read a book.
Because the attention span so what's happened is middle schools and high schools have given up even assigning big long books.
This concert I went to in the Greek, literally when you walk around, every single person
Got a phone.
videotaping the fucking
They're
concert. I'm like, you're never gonna watch the videotape.
You know what?
You're never gonna watch the videotape.
Okay.
Just experience it 1 day, 1 minute of your life. Just experience it. Put the phone away. You're not gonna video. You don't need to videotape the song, which you can watch on YouTube or in higher resolution anyway.
Dude. So this is a soapbox of mine.
Yeah.
Because we recently were on vacation, my wife and I, are having this very meditative experience walking through nature. And I held up my phone because there was this sunset coming down and these beautiful streaming things. And I held it up and I looked at my phone and I saw the image there. And then I looked at the thing and it was like just a child's sketchbook versus indescribable beauty. And what people do now is they seem to equate this with this.
Yeah, the
and
experience.
it's nothing like it.
No.
So when you're watching a concert through this, because you're capturing it that you're never going to watch, like you said, you may share a clip with your friends as a FOMO-inducing like kind of social media cred brag thing. But even that, like I saw Weird Al for like my 40th birthday and everybody had their phones out. And I was like, dude, I'm watching Weird Al on my 40th birthday. Like I can't even take a clip of this, even though I know like my fans would go crazy if I sent it. But like
even Jay Varma left the phone at home when he went to the party. He's like, this you got to experience.
he actually knows surgeons that can install cameras in each nipple that are occult so that you could film the whole thing and no one
See,
will
the
know.
only good use of filming is to film somebody in the admission of that.
Which is exactly what.
Yeah.
So do you think it's ethical for that reporter or whoever it was to play him in that way?
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I'm not a journalist, so I don't know if they have a code of ethics. I hear one of them is sexting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That Olivia Newsy. You see that?
Such a great story.
Yeah, 30-year-old sexting a 7-year-old, who she's writing about on the campaign.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think I have hope. When I become 70, all I got to do is run for some office and I'll get sexted. Because right now I'm not getting sexted.
I do think that if that does happen, your reptilian brain is thinking, I still got it. I'm still.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But what you should, it's really your vanity talking.
That's really all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
It's your empty vanity and your ego.
Yeah.
Like
and
to be baited like that.
It's very common in middle age to go through that period where you want that validation. You just want someone to be madly in love with you that isn't your spouse and then feel like, oh, I still got it. And then there's that tipping point like, oh, well, but now I'm going to cheat and prove it, or now I'm going to do all these things, which that's fine too. That happens.
Then you come to the realization that no one likes you anyway. And
Exactly.
you're just comfortable. You're just comfortable with that.
Exactly. Then
No
you
one
realize, God, this whole thing is a story and illusion. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, fuck it. I'd rather, do this.
And then you're like, Jay Varma, you got any open
Any
spots?
openings? Any openings? Totally. Yeah. But again, it gets back to authenticity, and that's to wrap that in a bow. Yeah. Like just be you, whatever it is. If you somebody who wants to do that, that's great. But don't lie and say you're not. And don't try to hold up some idea of who you want to be to others. That's the other thing. The older I get, the less I want to do.
When you play back the conferences, it takes a new light. He's like, and by the way, next week we're going to lock down really hard, guys. So everything's going to be shut down. Are you ready for the shutdown? You won't be able to meet anywhere next week. That's what he's getting off on.
Dude.
That hypocrisy.
And he says it in a very ASMR kind of way. He's like, you think Wuhan's dark? You think that wet market? You think the wet market's where this started? Is your market wet too? This is why we've got to put the show behind a paywall, because, kids can't have kids listening.
No kids will listen to this.
What's next? We talked about reporters. We talked about Jay Varma.
I saw you an episode with your kids, and they asked, "Would any of your friends listen to me?" And then they're like, "Fuck no, Dad."
Yeah, my kids are brutal, dude.
Yeah, they let it.
They do not think this fame thing is like a thing, which is such a gift. Like if it's one thing I've accomplished, I've gotten famous enough that my kids look at me like I'm a jackass, and fame is not good.
I see,
and that's been a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I feel like every time, maybe almost every time that we've gone out for lunch, you've been recognized.
And yet when I get recognized myself out in the world, they're always telling me, I love what you did with Vinay Prasad. And I'm like, what am I? And like, where's my sext? Why are you sexting Vinay through me?
And they're like, and how's Jay Varma doing?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Can you send him this? It's like a dick pic of Jay Varma. What is this? Who was that guy, Wiener, who was sending the dick pics?
Anthony Wiener.
Aptly named.
Huma Abedudin's.
Oh, right. Huma Abedudin.
Abedudin's.
Hillary Clinton's right-hand
person.
Yeah.
And he had some compulsion.
Yeah, he had a thing.
There's something wrong with.
That's not uncommon.
I think all these people have, this is the part I disagree with you. I think there's something wrong in a lot of these people's head.
Yeah.
But, what do I know? I'm not a psychiatrist.
No, I think you're right.
I'm insane. No, just kidding. No, lots of love to my psychiatry colleagues. I think they do a terrific job. They have a new schizophrenia drug.
Yeah. What do you think of it? What do you think of the data? Have you seen it? I think
it's piss poor. It's
of course.
It's like an incredibly short follow-up. There's somebody on my research team. I'm going to write a viewpoint on it. But, it supposedly doesn't cause weight gain.
Like these other ones, Abilify or whatever.
Yeah. All these drugs.
This is the thing. The minute I saw that title of that, we're like, brand new antipsychotic approved or whatever, anti-schizophrenia. I was like, this is going to be garbage. It's a pretest probability, and that's judgmental and probably not a good way to do it. But I've been conditioned enough now by your approach to reviewing data that it's like, what's the pretest probability that's going to have a significant clinical impact in people who are suffering versus maybe we need a total different paradigm shift on how, like you said, you said a lot of these people have something wrong with them, right? Psychologically. I agree. All of us do. But I say some are more fixated than others by their conditioning, and they won't look where that is.
Correct.
So they'll do all the other stuff. They'll maybe even go out and be like, yeah, bro, like me and the other people at the sex party went afterwards and did an ayahuasca ceremony with a shaman who just showed me my inner child.
So they're pretending they're introspective.
That's right.
But they're not.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of people using psychedelics as a way to actually avoid the deepest parts of their trauma or pain, and they're still totally reactive assholes behaving in a passive aggressive and weirdly unconscious way. And I say this from personal experience.
I think you meet very few people in your life who take the time to understand how you operate and how you think. And very fewer of those people who actually take the time and the care to actually point out things you don't see about yourself, weaknesses and imperfections and things you might be better about. And then it takes a lot to not get angry or defensive, but to listen and think about it.
Oh. Yeah, I think that's well said.
I have a lot to tell you over lunch.
Yeah. Oh, good. That'll be good. Yeah. I was like, I mean, the last thing I'll say about that is like what I've noticed in working on myself in this way, which for better or for worse, it uncovers that. So say someone gives you that bit of feedback and you feel something in the body like, fuck you, you get defensive, or something happens and you're triggered in a certain way. What's fascinating is when you look in where you feel it in the body and then you just sit with that, it starts to show you what it is. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was that when I was a kid and I don't even remember this thing happened. And
I went to that Puff Daddy party.
It was that Puff Daddy party.
I opened that door.
And, P. Diddy tried to, live up to his last name and diddy me.
Yeah.
And I still, no, but it's usually something even can be quite subtle. And that inner child is still there acting and holding on to the seat of identity when it gets triggered, and you don't see it, and you can't see it until you do. So that kind of work people don't typically do. And yet it's really like, so what are you going to do? Take a drug to like calm down the demons, or actually sit with the demons and go, oh, actually you were doing your job when you were a kid, and now it's the maladaptive. But that's a whole nother talk.
And speaking about
maladaptive,
reflecting on things from past.
Yes.
It's the 10th year anniversary of the Paradigm HF trial.
Okay, now how
did you like that segue?
I love that.
Did you like that segue?
Are we? So we're talking about heart failure, and we're talking about the perfect segue. And now we've gone from pseudoscience of the mind to science of the heart.
Well, it's also a little pseudoscience-y. But,
yeah.
So this story gets started. Recently, I don't know if I ever told you the story. 10 years ago, I was a HEMONC fellow, would you believe?
Crazy.
I know. I put a photo of how I looked like back then. It was quite youthful.
Oh, isn't that amazing how that happens?
No gray hairs in the beard.
God damn it, dude.
Yeah, I was all black back then. Yeah.
That's badass.
Youthful. Yeah. Energetic. But actually, I think I'm fitter these days. Anyway. So,
yeah, me too.
Yeah. I think so. But so 10 years ago, I was a HEMONC fellow, and I read Paradigm HF, which came out 2014, September 10th-ish, New England Journal of Medicine. And I immediately thought it's got some problems with Paradigm HF. This is a new class of medicines, sacubitril, which was the first-in-class neprilysin inhibitor. And you can't give a neprilysin inhibitor with an ACE inhibitor because it causes angioedema. We learned that from omeprazole, an older drug. So they paired it with an ARB, valsartan, and they paired it with a hefty dose of an ARB, 160 milligrams BID, 320 a day.
It's a big dose, yeah.
Fucking knock you down.
Yeah.
I feel lightheaded thinking about that dose.
Man, I'm already orthostatic. And I haven't even got up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you lost your erection just thinking about that hypertensive dose.
Anything that would get rid of this 20-day priapism would be okay with me.
Even if it's Entresto.
Exactly.
So, and they compared themselves against enalapril 10 milligrams BID.
Got it.
Which is the half maximal dose.
Like nothing, yeah.
Half maximal versus the max.
Yeah.
I think it's a decent, but that's not the max dose.
Oh, 10 BID, yeah.
And then they did a double drug run-in period. They did, whatever you come in on, you stop. You take 14 days of enalapril 10 BID. They lost 1,000 people, 10,000 drugs to 9,000. They put you on 14 days of Entresto at half the dose at the 80 milligram BID equivalent of valsartan. Lose a bunch of people. Then they put them on another 14 days at the full dose, and they lose another 1,000 people in that Entresto run-in. And then they randomize you to stay on what you're taking, Entresto, or switch back to enalapril. And the actual doses we give these days in the hospital, no one's getting the Entresto dose of the trial. They're all getting these fucking homeopathic doses.
Yeah.
So I read this study and I was like, you've not proven to me that sacubitril is valuable.
Yeah.
You've only proven that the ARB dose is bigger than the ACE dose, and that might be what's driving this outcome in a double drug run-in period.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of problems with it. And I sent this by email to a few people, and somebody said the New England Journal of Medicine, the Massachusetts Medical Society has a blog called Cardio Exchange or something, and we will take your criticism and we'll post it on our blog. What do you say, fellow? And I said, sure, why not? They posted it on the blog. It's called Let's Take a Close Look at Paradigm HF. And it was incredibly popular. Everyone's reading my blog post. Everyone's like asking me about it. And I'm a third-year fellow in HEMONC of all things, not even cards.
Yeah.
Okay. Then Milt Packer, the PI of the study, famous cardiologist, he writes back, well, it appears to me that Prasad doesn't understand the heart failure literature quite well. And then he has his big rebuttal.
Yeah.
And then I write back and he writes back and then he writes, Dr. Prasad, I hope you don't get heart failure.
Oh my God.
But if you do get heart failure, you're going to take this pill. And I was like, wow, did he just wish heart failure upon me? And then I was like, no, I won't take it. And he was like, you know what? You may not take it, but you wouldn't be prescribing it to yourself. Let's assume another doctor prescribed it to you. Are you going to fill the prescription? I was like, Jesus Christ, your rhetorical gambit of whether or not I would take it. And so I wrote something back. So then it has all these kind of insults in it. It's like dripping with condescension. In my opinion, like it says like, you don't know enough about heart failure trials and blah, blah, blah. These little ad hominems. But there's also some substantive debate here.
Yeah.
So then the New England Journal people were like, oh, these comments are a little problematic. Let's take this post down, redact it, take away all the comments, and put a new version up on the internet. And I was a fellow at the time, and I didn't want to fight, be like, I don't have a job or anything.
Yeah,
I don't want to rub anyone's wrong way. So
hierarchically, it's bad. Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So then they took it down. They stripped all Milt Packer's like little, insults out, whatever. They put it back up. And then a few years later, they deleted my post from the website, but they left up this, they're playing
the rebuttal.
They're playing some games or something.
Right.
So anyway, on the 10th anniversary, I've recently released the original unpublished version on my Substack, vinayprasad.com. And you can read the full version, unedited. And I wrote a little blog post about it today before I saw you. And here's where I'm going to take it in a different way. Okay. Now, 10 years ago, before there was cancel culture, Milt Packer was kind of dickish towards me, and I was a fellow.
Yeah.
And if he did that in 2024, the fucking mob would have come for him.
Come for
and they'd
him,
be, you're punching down on a fellow, blah,
That's
blah,
right.
blah. You're canceled, Milt, blah, blah, blah. You're, all this stuff. Right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
10 years ago, the establishment protected him, and then they retracted the comments and those kinds of things.
Correct.
Okay. But I actually think I miss the good old days, and here's why. In 2024, there ain't no PI of any study that'll ever reply to a blog post.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
back then he may have insulted me a little bit, but
Yeah.
he had the guts
Yeah.
to come back and defend his study.
Yeah.
And you know what? There was some substantive points in between the ad hominem, but there are substantive points too. And he had the chance to do that 10 years ago. Now, the company would tell him, oh, it's a legal liability, don't reply.
Yeah.
And PIs would say, oh, everyone's so sensitive, you could come across as a bully, don't reply. So we have a new culture now where there is no debate, no dialogue. I miss the old days where I take a couple in the chin, but at least we could have a dialogue. So I actually admire the fact that he had the balls to reply.
Yeah.
And I wish there were more people like Milt Packer today who would actually push back on their trials, like when they get criticism.
So I think it's a huge point that ties right into things we say all the time, which is that the debate, the authentic dialogue is gone for all the reasons that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And what is interesting is, why did he choose to respond to you back then? Was it because some of your arguments actually hit close to home and triggered something in him that felt like he had to defend? Was some of his personality triggered by this upstart fellow and some hierarchical? It almost doesn't matter. The end result was he had to go, he throw some ad hominem, sure, because that's what they do.
That's what they do.
And you know what? Honestly, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
It
Why
makes
not?
it entertaining.
Why not? What the fuck does Prasad know about heart failure?
What the
Some
fuck?
this fucking fellow talking shit. I've been doing this for 40 fucking years. Look at this fucking fellow. You
Look at
got
this guy.
You fucking read a book one day, now you got some points. Shut the fuck up.
I mean, we would do the same thing if a medical student was like, you two fuckers don't know how to communicate. What kind of show is this? Is bullshit.
Yeah,
They're
right.
like, oh,
What
come
kind of
over
show?
here and do it better than us.
Yeah, right. They come over here and you take the microphone.
And they just be like this.
Yeah, you take the microphone. Yeah, but so he said some things, but good for him. Yeah.
I agree. So here's a question. How has your criticism held up over the 10 years?
Oh, I think it's been fully vindicated. Recently, there's a meta-analysis that says sacubitril valsartan only works when the control arm is underdosed in ACE inhibitor, and it doesn't work when it's properly dosed. 2, this drug has failed repeatedly in every other situation. It failed post-MI.
Yeah.
Most drugs that work in reduced ejection fraction work post-MI. It failed in Paradise MI. It's failed so many other studies. And most importantly, where's the other bitrils? There's only one sacubitril. When you talk about empagliflozin, dapagliflozin, there's gagigliflozin, every fucking flozin. There's only one bitril.
Yeah.
And it's really been a failed class of medications, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And heart failure mortality, the rate of death among people diagnosed with heart failure from 2012 to the present it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
This is the bad decade because they've switched to goal-directed therapy and putting all these people on all this shitty drugs at homeopathic doses rather than pick 1 or 2 and crank up the
just
dose.
crank them up.
Which is what we used to do.
So let me see if I understand correctly.
When doctors were
Basically,
giants.
one of your points here is that if you maximize an ACE or an ARB, this bitril is not going to do shit because the original drug's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, we have no proof that bitril adds to a max dose ARB
Yeah.
or max dose ACE. We have no proof of that, and the meta-analysis shows it doesn't.
Yeah. And it's easy to max those out.
Back in the day,
Typically, I mean, unless you have.
when there are fewer drugs.
Right.
And then the next point is the only dose that's ever been validated is a dose that ain't nobody getting.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody getting the only dose that's been studied.
Right.
Where's the study that shows the dose you're giving works?
And this drug is not cheap.
And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
Yeah. It's not cheap at all.
It's making it rain in Novartis.
Yes. Yeah. I remember actually somebody at Novartis might have reached out to me to do an educational campaign as ZDogg on Entresto.
Wow.
And I said no.
It took some courage.
Well, it didn't. I was like, I know how these things are. And I wasn't even really reviewing all the literature. I'm just like, none of this shit works right. And
you're like, I can't do it
I
on
can't,
that
I'm not,
evening.
I'm not going to pitch.
Got Jay Varma's party tonight.
That's right. Jay Varma's party.
It was the same night.
I mean, I got my second Shingrix vaccine. And I'm just feeling really under the weather because I thought it meant all herpes.
Oh, Shingrix.
But it was herpes zoster,
Zoster.
which doesn't show up on the
It's
ding
the
dong. Yeah.
VZV.
Not
VZV.
HCV. Yeah.
SV.
By the way, I did get the Shing because I'm over 50 now. I got the Shingrix.
You've had a
shot.
colonoscopy. You've
I got
had
a
a
colo.
Shingrix.
I got Shingrix. The colo
What's your PSA?
I did not check that, and I shan't because that's the last thing I need.
Okay.
Yeah, I did find out I have a lot of diverticulosis.
Your CA-125? What's that?
10 million.
Okay.
Yeah. I also have ovarian cancer, according to other. Yeah. But yeah.
So Shingrix, it's a rocky road. I
It
heard
is.
it fucks you up.
Absolutely brutal for me.
Mhm.
Like 2 days of COVID booster level symptoms, maybe worse. Like it was bad. And I was like, and what am I getting out of this? Oh, not having potentially, I mean, what is it? The high
Dianne
efficacy.
Feinstein syndrome?
Dianne Feinstein syndrome?
Well, that's what took her down at the end.
Wait, what?
Yeah, didn't she have that horrible case of shingles and that precipitated her demise?
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. Shingles is terrible, dude.
Yeah,
When it's full blown
full-blown shingles.
with the post pain and all that. But I got to say, man, I hesitated to get the second dose because the first sucked and the second sucked. So I'm just saying this because people like this. Okay, this is interesting. The pharmacist at CVS for the first shot never said a word about it. Just gave me the shot, and I knew that it was reactogenic, and I was fine. Yeah, I giggled. I giggled in the face of fucking fevers, chills, and sweats, and myalgia.
So of 1,000, like what's the rate of people in bed for a day?
Good question. I would like to see that. I'd have to look at the primary data.
See, I think all these vaccine trials should take, like if you give 1,000 people a vaccine and 600 people are in bed for 2 days, okay? That's 600 people times 2 days. That's 1,200 days in bed.
Of lost.
Okay?
Mhm.
And then how many people don't get shingles?
Right.
Like 5, and 5 people save maybe 5 days in bed.
Right.
That's 25 days. But like, you
Yeah,
should take the days
that's-
lost from the fucking side effects and minus the days gained.
Huh?
Because I think for COVID boosters, it would be
It's the
unfavorable.
same
Yeah, it's
thing.
the
It'd
same
be
principle. Yeah,
unfavorable. So this is why, yeah. So,
But I don't know the answer to this question.
so the second pharmacist who gave me the second shot was like, "How'd you do with the first shot?" Like actually asked me, took the time to ask me, and I was like, "Oh, it was hellish." And she's like, "Yeah, it's like that, isn't it?" And I'm like, "So you see this all the time, right?" So just from an anecdotal standpoint, she's seeing all this, and it's exactly that. It's like, so people are like, "Oh, just go get your shingle shot." They don't tell you, do it on a day you don't have to go to work. Do it on a day when you're just going to chill and you're going to sit in bed anyways and take Tylenol around the clock, because that's what it was like. COVID boosters? No. Hey, come get it with your flu shot. They're calling you. Hey, have you gotten your? She asked me too. She's like, "Would you like me to throw in?" Because I got flu.
Oh, didn't she
and
call you when we had Marty here? Yeah,
She was calling for flu.
hazy.
Yeah, because they get these.
Don't forget your flu
There are
shot.
these metrics that CVS
Little
has.
bonus, little
Oh,
taste. They
it
get a
was
little taste of it.
Brutal, man. So I'm like, oh, now you want me to get a COVID booster when I had COVID a few months ago, and I'm going to feel like shit for what exact benefit in mortality? Forget it. I mean,
At this point, I'm going with the raw milk guy.
you know, I actually had a patient at Stanford when I was there who got endocarditis from raw milk.
Boom.
Yeah, had a very
Was it
specific
listeria?
bacteria.
Mine was a different one. Mine was cytogenous.
It was, yeah, and
Nope.
he had a terrible
It was a bovine.
course.
I know
Yeah,
what it is. I know what now it's coming to. It's jingling a bell.
yeah, it's a weird bug. I don't even know if it was listeria. It was
Well,
something
I got to
else.
go back and do an ID fellowship and
I know.
take a dip in my career earnings, and then, then I know the answer to the question.
That's true. Hey,
Speaking of dip in career earnings,
let's talk about that.
Speaking of dip in career earnings,
MD,
that's another
PhD.
segment. That's another. You knew where I was going.
Yeah.
MD. So recently, I was talking to a graduating MD PhD, and the graduating MD PhD told me, "This is the job I got. What do you think? Here's the job. This person, undergraduate at a Ivy League institution. You know what an Ivy League institution is? It's a place that rejected you. Okay,
Yeah.
okay? That's how you'll.
I have a few of those.
Yeah, a few of those. Okay, so that's number one. 2, then this person did 2 years of CRC. That stands for Clinical Research Coordination. That's where you take some promising young person and you force them to do some bullshit study for 2. So, okay, so that's what you torture them.
So they did that.
They did that. Then they did an MSTP, also at a top-notch place.
That's
A good-
an MD,
a good place.
PhD with research. Yeah.
With research, MD PhD. That's a 9-year program.
Yeah.
9 years. They did 2, 5 years, 2 more years. Boom. Okay. Then after that, they did a 2-year fast track internal medicine.
Ah.
This is the fast portion of the life.
Yeah.
2 instead of 3.
Yeah.
Forget
that third. The third year was a joke anyway.
Forget all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't learn that. And forget all those years this person has squandered so far. Okay, after the 2 years, but then they did a long track fellowship. They made it 4 years because the person has to do some lab work. So then after all this training, this person was like, I actually don't think I want to run a lab. I don't want to be writing grants all the time and begging the NIH to give me some money. I'm not going to run a lab. I just want a clinical job at a university because I like to teach and I like to stay part of this academic environment that I've so immersed myself in for the last 100 years of my life. And then here's the job offer. 6 half days of clinic. So 3 full days of oncology clinic.
Jesus.
4 weeks on service and $250K. The big 250.
$250,000 for how many years of lost revenue? And
for a lifetime lost.
Lifetime lost.
A lifetime lost.
So I have some thoughts here. Yes. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Right? And just real quick, what is wrong with this person?
Well, a lot of people like this person, but yeah, they're gluttons for
is it okay? I have two guesses. One is they're avoidant. They don't really want to enter the world and they like to stay in school because it's a safe cocoon, even though it sucks. And that's possible. There are people like that. The second is that they're an Enneagram type 5 personality, which is the investigator. They just love to learn and to master something. And so they're constantly looking for mastery.
I see.
And that's what gives them the sense of identity and worth.
And I think there's the third reason I'll offer you is that this is probably somebody who, when they were like 16, people were like, you're really smart.
Yeah.
You really got to apply yourself and do the most.
Yeah.
And then when they're in college, like, you're really smart. And really smart people do MD, PhDs. They don't just do one or the other, they do both.
I actually think that part and the part I just mentioned are co-aligned.
I see.
They almost self-reinforce because that person gets so good. So a lot of journalists, a lot of scientists are Enneagram 5. They're like the investigator. They just and they're actually a little bit awkward with other people sometimes. And they find that mastering something gives them a sense of safety and worth. So you go through all that and then you're met with somebody who's going to take advantage of that type and go, here's $250,000 to fucking suffer.
To fucking suffer.
So much clinical work when you spent your whole career doing research and clinical.
You're just like a slave to the hospital at this point.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, this person's like, they're screwed. They're never gonna have any research career with that kind of work. And they're gonna quit and go to Genentech in 4 years.
That's what's gonna happen.
With that kind of workload.
Because they're gonna burn them through.
Burn them out.
Or what happens is they have the golden handcuffs. They start this, they go, 250, that's actually more money than I've ever made.
Correct.
Because that's the kind of Stockholm Syndrome delusion that you get. Because I had that. Like I was making like $175,000 coming
Making
in.
it rain.
And I was like, man, I'm so rich right now. And you don't realize they're just fucking serving you.
I'll call that Uber.
Yeah, totally. I'll get the Uber instead of, hitchhiking.
Meanwhile, I gave a talk in February at MIT, and these students are all CS majors or stuff, many of them, engineering CS. And I'm like, what are you going to do afterwards? Anyone here interested in medicine? It's like crickets. I'm like, what are you going to do? And I'm doing medicine. What the fuck are you doing? You're so smart. And they're like, oh, I'm going to go work at OpenAI for $570,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, this 22-year-old's making $570,000. Damn.
Well, that's the point, right?
I was like, can I just enroll as a freshman here? I was like, yeah.
So who's going to do this kind of thing anymore? Only the most hardcore Enneagram 5 that just doesn't care about their life.
And then they're
apart from the learning.
Any day now, we're going to find the cure.
That's right. Well, or they get the golden handcuffs where now they have a kid. They find someone who will marry them with their measly $250,000. And they have a kid. They put the kid in private school because all the public schools are locked down because of COVID. Put them in private school. Now they have
because only private schools can prepare you for MSTP in the future. Perpetuate.
Talk about intergenerational trauma. Yeah. Like the parent does that. Like I know so many people whose parents were like MD, PhD, hardcore, immigrants too, and they're doing the same thing. And it's almost like, actually my wife, I would say, like her dad is a physician scientist, definitely an Enneagram 5. And she decided, she went and did internal medicine with me, board certified, because her dad told her, dude, like there's nothing like being like a specialist and doing research in medicine. So she was going to do Palm. She hated it, every minute of it. She hated the whole field of medicine because it was so unknowable. And she's like, I want to be a radiologist. But he was like, that's not a real, you can't really, that's not really a real, you're not a real doctor.
That's why he disowned her.
And so he disowned her. He was fine with it actually. But I think she had this conditioning. And so finally she board certifies in medicine with me. And then it's like, can you support me for 4 years while I go back and do a 4-year radiology with a fellowship?
Wow.
And that's what we did.
And then you're like, I better learn to sing and dance.
Exactly. So I did the hospital song and dance. And then she supported me. I mean, she supported me by coming to Vegas when I did the clinic thing. So she paid me back in that way. It wasn't really a tit for tat, but it was like, man, the way we listen to our conditioning and what's expected of us versus what we actually know we want to do.
And you mentioned this, but I have a thing for like people who think they have mastery in medicine. I love talking to because they initially come off as arrogant.
Yeah.
And my specialty is very sweetly getting to the point where I break them and break their spirit just through a few questions, because they always start with something they think they know well. And then eventually you can bring them to the part where they're making a leap or there's something that they don't know because medicine is so unknowable.
It's unknowable, yeah.
And so I love doing it. Recently I saw somebody tweet like, if you come into the hospital on anticoagulation, we're going to reverse you. The doctor may ask you, have you had a vasectomy? Don't be alarmed if they ask. The reason being is that protamine sulfate, the reversal agent for heparin, is derived in part from salmon sperm. So there can be a person who has anti-sperm antibodies may be more likely to have an adverse reaction to this. So it's a relevant question. And people who've had a vasectomy, the blood-sperm barrier has been disrupted, and they may be more likely to have the antibodies. So now it's like, I think I've heard this before. And I think I looked into it once, like 10, 20 years ago. It's not exactly true.
Yeah.
And here's what's not true about it. It's that protamine, of course, is a very reactogenic material.
Yeah.
And heparin also wears off very quickly. So point number one is you should very rarely be giving somebody protamine.
Need to have it, yeah.
Maybe in the cath lab or something like that.
Right.
Very rarely.
Instantly, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's one. Two, some people are going to react no matter what. Three, yes, they are more likely to have these antibodies that have this sort of sperm cross-linkage thing. But are they actually more likely to reactivate? And the answer is we have very little credible population evidence that that's true. And there is one study, very small, from the early 1990s that shows there is no risk whether you had the vasectomy or not. So at the end of the day, this person is just kind of passing along this folklore, acting like, again,
a master.
A master. When there's a lot of fundamentally unanswered questions about this. Should you be giving protamine? When should you give protamine? If you give protamine, do you react more? Having vasectomy, is that a higher rate of reactivation? What's the odds ratio? People don't know the odds ratio. So this person is talking out their ass. They really don't understand it at the various deep level because the right answer is there's a lot we don't know.
We don't know. And this is the thing, they'll call it a pearl. They go, this guy's a great attendant because he's got a pearl of wisdom. And the second thing I just want to point out here is that the other thing that causes
a fake pearl.
It's a fake pearl. Yeah, it's like a plastic pearl.
You can smash the hammer on it and then it fractures in a way. That's how you know it's a real pearl.
Yes, it's a perlic zirconia.
Perlic zirconia.
Is what it is. And the second thing that I've noticed that does disrupt the blood-sperm barrier is a Jay Varma sex party. Because
that's how you had hematospermia.
That's how I had hematospermia. Yeah.
These are just allergies.
If you give me COVID again, I get to skip the shot again. Because why?
It's actually shingles. No, just kidding.
Nasal shingles.
Nasal shingles. Yeah.
Actually, you can get zoster right on
the
nose. What's that called? It's called it's a syndrome. It affects the cranial nerve and the eye. You can go blind or I forget what it is now. God damn it! It's like a board question.
No, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, right. It's it's going to light up the comments.
Yeah, they're gonna.
God damn it.
That's gonna.
Oh well, but see that again. We've talked about how medical schools teach you stuff that is just never
tip of the nose. You can also go blind. You should check for conjunctivitis.
That's right. But it's a zoster reactivation.
It's an eponym.
That's right. What is it?
Okay.
Something syndrome. Me and VP are never going to be able to not think about this now because of how we're wired, for mastery. Blood sperm barrier. Is it you figuring it out?
I think it's. I remember Ramsey Hunt.
Is it Ramsey Hunt?
But I haven't Googled it yet. I think it's going to be Ramsey Hunt.
I think it's Ramsey Hunt. I think it's Ramsey Hunt because that immediately said yes to me.
Ramsey Hunt.
Yeah, Ramsey Hunt.
But I want they're not going to believe me. As I was typing herpes eye and these things,
thought Ramsey Hunt.
I thought it did enter my brain first.
I will tell you this: the
minute
you said Ramsey Hunt, I was like, "That's it. You don't even have to look at it." Yeah,
I knew Ramsey.
Isn't it funny though how the mind works? Because it's reflective consciousness.
I can tell this story. When I was a resident, there was a resident a couple years ahead of me.
Slide over a little this way because the focus is trying to. Yeah, it's this piece of shit.
There's a resident a couple years ahead of me.
Fuck, there we go. Yeah, go ahead.
He was a savant. He won National Jeopardy. He's a savant. And one day I was testing him and I was like, hey, Ben, have you ever heard of if a woman had breast cancer in the arm and we removed all the lymph nodes, and then many years later, because of the chronic lymphedema, she developed a sarcoma in that arm. And he's like, oh, you're asking me about the Stewart-Treves syndrome? And I was like, Jesus Christ, how'd you know that, buddy? And then he was like, oh, it's only on page 742 of Harrison's upper right-hand corner.
Wow.
He's like Goodwill Hunting, you know?
True savant. Yeah.
You're going to try to pass that off as your own when you read it on page 42 of Harrison's. And the difference between me and you is you paid $150,000 for that education. I only paid $150 for that fucking library card. And how do you like these apples? As you told me. And I was like, Jesus Christ, Goodwill. No, he was good.
That's amazing.
And then once we went to a baseball game and somebody ordered a bison dog. And then somebody saw on the menu there's also buffalo burger.
Mm.
And then someone was like, why is it a bison dog but a buffalo burger?
Mm.
And I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, but you know who would know? Ben Singer.
So, and what did he say?
I was like, Ben, why is it a bison dog but a buffalo burger? And then he turns back without missing a beat. And he was like, oh, well, Dr. Prasad Ives, you know. Buffalo, of course, is a term that refers to many species, and bison bisonus, the American buffalo, is the type of buffalo most prevalent on the North American continent. I was like, Jesus Christ, he knows the answer. He knew the full answer. He knew the full answer without missing a beat.
You know what? We don't need AI.
We don't need AI.
We just need I. We just need this guy.
This guy.
That's amazing, actually. Yeah. You really have to think like, because our brain doesn't work like that. Right? I mean, yours works like that much more than mine does. Yours makes connections and can analyze in certain ways. I have certain connections that I'm able to make that may be savantish in certain spaces. But that's like a kind of recall savantia. That's just, it's so beyond me. It's like people who can do really high level math.
Your only savant skill is this, like cleaning surfaces repetitively.
Absolutely.
Until it's really
While
clean.
saying Wapner. Yeah.
And you're like,
that's why they call me Rain Man, because I use Rain-X.
I say Rain-X and then
exactly.
wiping and say,
Wiping.
Jay Varma will be here later. It has to be clean. Has to be clean.
Jay yelled at me last time. He yelled at me last time for not cleaning up all the hematospermia. What's next on our agenda?
I think we've covered most.
Yeah.
Marty's bestseller.
Marty has a bestseller.
Well, almost. Because he sold out on the first day. The publisher didn't print enough. And it was like, it's like number 10 or something on Amazon. And it would have been like number -5. But, you know, Marty is he's such a sweetie. You know? Interesting character.
Yeah, he's a real character, man. He's always looking. This is his thing. Like, he's wired like the investigative reporter who just wants to show us where we're missing shit. You know, which is why we all three get along pretty good, because it's always like eye roll. Like, anytime we get together, it's like, can you believe this fucker said this?
I think people who are in academics who need career advice on how to, like, what you should be doing in academics, they should talk to Marty.
They should talk to Marty.
Because Marty he
solved it. Figured it out.
Figured it out.
Yeah. And part of it is
Professor at Johns Hopkins.
Professor at Johns Hopkins, tenured.
And that's a good place.
Islet, you know, like pancreatic surgeon specialty, done all this work, all this research, written 3 books?
3 books.
Done all, you have as well, haven't you? Or at least 2?
2.
Someone told me, I have a friend who works at Apple who told me that they just binge read Malignant and thought it was amazing.
Wow.
And I was like, I can't even binge read Malignant.
Yeah, I was like, this is a weird person.
I'm like these kids who can't read books. Like,
I want to write a book called Medicine, a Tell-All.
Ooh.
Where I tell the real stories.
Oh, I like that. Behind the medicine?
The stories that you don't want to know.
I'm going to write a book called Doc Goose, How to Find the Perfect Physician Partner. And it's going to be a dating guide and that I know nothing about because I haven't dated for 25 years.
Yeah, but it's an interesting idea.
Right? I mean, I think everybody wants to marry a doctor. I mean, at least that's like the Jewish mom dream, right? Is like, marry a doctor. So we could tell you how to do it. Like, here's how you get in our egos. Here's how you get your hooks in. This is what you say to us to make us feel like we're important and smart and have a big penis. Like all the shit, you know, right? And that's it.
And there's like a whole section on if you want the kind of doctor that goes to Jay Varma parties.
Yeah. There's a polyamory, like Molly ecstasy party. Supplement.
A supplement.
Right. Very
Supplemental
important.
guide.
Very important. What else do we have?
The closing thoughts, because I'm hungry now.
Oh, yeah.
Closing thought is I'll be appearing at Stanford tomorrow, October 4th, in a conference hosted by Jay Bhattacharya, where the president of Stanford is going to talk. We're talking about COVID-19 policy. And then on Monday, October 7th, Emory University, Carlos Del Rio and I will be talking about masking mistakes and other COVID-19 policy mishaps.
You know what I love about all this? I'm sure it's driving the COVIDian faction crazy. And it's probably driving the opposite faction crazy too, because it's giving all this academic imprimatur to the conversation. And I love it. Like, that's what we want.
The COVID infection, they're still out there. They're like, why is no one talking about the fact that repeated infections is a vascular and debilitating event? And I'm like,
He's like, oh man, I have longer COVID than you.
know, there's this whole genre of like low credibility science that's used to make these claims that is just so bad. And there's like a class of people just stuck in fear. I feel
yeah. And then there's a class of people who are like, I'm not vaccinating my kid for measles.
Oh yeah, they went the other way.
They want the other way. So it's
the
like,
other way.
we've done irreparable harm all
They're
across
like,
the
I'm not
board.
getting my Shingrix.
Yeah, I know. And then what? I'm going to get Ramsey Hunt syndrome.
Ramsey Hunt.
Ramsey fucking Hunt.
He'd be hunted up.
That's like the Catalina fucking wine mixture, man. Well, I think we did a thing.
It's a good show.
Yeah, man. So we'll be
Episode
back.
35.
We're going to try to be more consistent. It's hard.
We are going to try to be more consistent.
Yeah. Because I think we're both fundamentally a little lazy, too.
Yeah, we need the audience to incentivize us.
We need a live audience.
A live
This
audience.
episode of VPZD is filmed in front of a live studio audience. And we got a laugh track.
If there was a live audience and that feedback, it would be a really good
Oh, it'd be
episode.
great.
It'd be really
With
good.
questions, people could throw questions at us.
Huh.
Oh, dude.
Where would we do it? Downtown?
That's a great, the Greek. We'll do it at the Greek Theater.
Yeah, a lot
Then
of
I could get up there and be like, if I ever lose my faith in you. All right, let's eat. By the way, if we don't put this out by the time your conference is, October 4th is the conference, and Monday,
October 7th.
October 7th is the Emory. Are you streaming these things at all?
I think the Emory is supposed to be on YouTube.
Okay.
And October 4th, I'm sure Jay will put on YouTube.
Jay will put it on YouTube. Great. Awesome, man.
And then follow us on Substack, on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel. These days, nobody wants to subscribe to my channel. I don't know what's going on.
Got it, dude. My algorithm is toast.
It's toast.
It's toast. I'm all right with it, too. Actually, last thing I want to say, there's a part of me that just wants to stop doing everything related to this YouTube thing. But then I hang out with you, and I'm like, fuck, this is too much fun.
It's too much fun.
Yeah.
This is what we'd be doing.
If we were just hanging out.
Yeah, just without the lights.
So
and
I guess we'll
cameras.
do this and everything else can go to hell.
Made me put on.
I know. I put pancake makeup on Vinay.
No.
Literally pancake batter.
No makeup. No makeup.
No makeup, yeah. Just lighting.
Just lighting.
Lighting and defocusing.
Deceptive lighting.
In unintentionally. Deceptive lighting, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's eat, and maybe we'll get recognized. If we do, we'll talk about it in the next episode.
Next episode. And
Awesome.
don't put Ramsey Hunt in the comments. You bet. Don't do it.
Yeah.
All right.
You do,
Until
you're
next
a
time.
tool.
Until next time.
Peace.